remind me why we've lied our way into a man's apartment while he's not here?
Monsieur Christiansen was accused of harassing a young lady who has now been murdered, and he has not been seen since, even by his wife. Does that not strike you as peculiar?
Do you really think he could be capable of murder?
I believe everyone is capable, under the right circumstances. And right now, I believe Monsieur Christiansen is in that position. While we have no suspect to question, let us use our time wisely and search for clues.
Oh. Huh. Huh. Oh. Oh. Mm-hmm. Ah. Aha. Aha. Huh. Ah. Oh.
Monsieur Hastings, your assistance is required.
Of course. What do you need? What can I do for you?
Monsieur Christiansen was at the scene of the crime smoking with Mademoiselle Court Smyth before her death. Could he be the holder of the original Penitent Magdalene painting? He may very well have hidden it here.
Ah, Poirot! Good to see you.
The feeling is mutual, Monsieur Demire.
Ah, you and your formalities. Let's talk over here.
Is everything all right?
Miss Farquhar is interviewing Betty. I thought we should talk privately over here. I heard about Irene. Tragic news. And what's this I hear about poison?
Who told you that?
It doesn't take long for news like that to spread in this city.
I would appreciate some discretion between friends. But Mademoiselle was poisoned.
Anything I can help with? I won't take offense, as I know you're just doing your job. I attended the evening performance of Betty's show. Anastasia and I had a grand old time.
She accompanied you as your date?
She was at a loose end after the gala. Don't worry, I'm not here to tread on any toes. I mean, he can hold a conversation, of sorts.
You do not think particularly highly of him.
I've never had a problem with him before. Look, I ran into him last night in a bar after the show, and by the looks of him, it wasn't his first drink of the night. He was trying to sell me a lucrative business opportunity, a way we could both make some quick money.
Did you take him up on his offer?
God, no. When someone offers you something that sounds too good to be true, it usually is. That was some weekend. You should get him to tell you about it sometime.
Bragging is a sign of overconfidence and grandiose behavior.
You know, at first I found those kind of replies annoying. But now, charming almost.
I shall accept that as both a compliment and a sign of your maturity.
If it wasn't for the detective here, I would probably still be wallowing in my own anger and self-pity.
You have lived a life many of us have only heard about in stories. A life that we all hope no one will have to live again.
I second that.
Your family must be proud of the man you have become, as am I. I will not take up any more of your time. I do not mean to interrupt.
Then perhaps you should wait until we have finished the interview.
I do not mean to interrupt.
Then perhaps you should wait until we have finished the interview.
Gentlemen, you're back.
Allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Detective Hercule Poirot of the Kingdom of Belgium's police force.
You should have led with that before. Nathaniel Dryden, editor of the London Illustrated News.
My apologies. I was not aware of your position on our initial meeting.
That's quite all right. You were still more polite than most of the people that come through my door. What can I do for you? I did, but that was supposed to be an exclusive. How did you know?
It is a detective's job to know such things.
Doesn't really explain how, but okay. He said he had something to tell me that was going to blow me away. I couldn't say no. Indeed, she was. Although she was working on her own story, so I left her to it.
At no point did she leave the office?
She's a very hard worker and won't leave until the story is just how she wants it. Needless to say, she outstayed me. She had photographs to develop too, so was in the dark room for some time. I'm sorry, gentlemen, but I have another appointment, if you don't mind. This place is usually full of all sorts that think they have a story for us, or want to know more about something we've published. I was meaning to mention that to Florence, actually.
Mention what, monsieur?
A young foreign girl came in asking about a piece that was on show at the museum. Originated in Eastern Europe somewhere, and Florence had written an article on it.
Did she say why she was so interested?
She said she was researching its journey from its first home with an affluent family. I forget the name. I couldn't tell her much more, besides that it was going to be moved from the museum shortly. No doubt into another exhibition somewhere.
Could this inquisitive young woman have been Mademoiselle Babagna? But why so curious about that particular piece of jewelry?
Merci. You have been most accommodating.
Huh. Oh. Huh. Aha. Huh. Aha.
Sacre. What is the meaning of this? It is the missing painting, and this photograph is identical to one that had been burnt in the fire.
Oh.
What do you need? What can I do for you?
I will not take. Bonjour, mademoiselle. Is everything all right? Do not worry. It will not be long before the murderer is brought to justice.
It's not that. I just cannot understand how such historically relevant pieces like this remain in British hands. It doesn't belong here.
I'm sorry, mademoiselle. I do not have the answer. I'm sure they are well maintained, if that is any consolation.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sure this is the last thing you wish to be talking about. Is there something I can help you with? Well, after it was all cut short rather abruptly, we made our way to Mrs. Allen's play.
Oui, mademoiselle?
Mr. Demir and myself. We were all at a loose end and he was kind enough to invite me. Oh, I wasn't aware Mr. Hastings was to be the focus of Florence's article.
On the contrary, it is only one of many she took at the gala. What interests me is the brooch.
Would you believe I found it? Amazing how careless some people can be.
And you are intending on returning it?
Of course. It just slipped my mind with all the commotion of the painting.
Mademoiselle Court Smyth no longer requires it. I shall hold on to it for now.
Yes, and it was something that I wanted to speak with you about, actually. At the gala, I spoke with the bishop and he mentioned a painting he had seen last year. But it was one that I'd read had been stolen. He couldn't have seen it when he said, unless... Well, it didn't sit well with me. So when Evelyn escorted you both to the restoration room and he left, I followed him. I stayed well back, and the bishop is hardly the most threatening. I followed him into his church, but he was gone. I looked everywhere, but he was nowhere to be seen. It was like he just evaporated.
He is a man of God, not a magician.
I don't know what to say. He wasn't there. I decided to wait outside, but when he eventually left, he had a wrapped package under his arm.
You have been most helpful, mademoiselle. I shall not take up any more of your time.
What do you need? What can I do for you?
I will not take up any more of your time. I do not mean to interrupt.
Then perhaps you should wait until we have finished the interview.
I do not mean to interrupt.
Then perhaps you should wait until we have finished the interview.
Mademoiselle Farquhar, could I speak with you for a moment?
I'm in the middle of an interview.
I really must insist.
That was incredibly unprofessional, Detective.
If we are to discuss professionalism, perhaps we should talk about your work with Mademoiselle Court Smyth.
I think you've got me confused with...
Enough, mademoiselle. It is time for the truth.
You don't think I was involved?
Please do not feign ignorance, mademoiselle. Where did mademoiselle receive her inspiration to make her forgeries? I remind you that I stand before you as a detective. It would be wise not to continue this charade any longer.
Poirot, maybe we should...
Monsieur Hastings, if Mademoiselle Farquhar requires someone to speak in her defense, she can contact a lawyer.
That won't be necessary. She asked me to photograph certain pieces of art, that's all. I didn't know what she was doing with them. I swear. I have no idea. I thought she was just trying to help my career, and I needed it.
Your career does not appear to need the help of a criminal.
She had such confidence. She knew all the right things to say.
And she got exactly what she wanted from you.
I was financially dependent on her. She paid for the lifestyle that I had found myself in, that she pushed me into.
Couldn't you have just said no to her?
And risk her exposing me for what I had done. She was the one holding all the cards. I had no way of proving it was all her plan. I had no other choice but to do what she said.
Merci, mademoiselle. That is all for now.
Ah. Oh. Ah. Hmm.
If it is, it's been written by someone that hasn't quite grasped the English language yet. Fire to Irene. Some kind of instruction to commit arson.
It seems too obvious, but that does not mean it is wrong.
I am sorry to have interrupted your interview earlier.
By the looks of it, what you were saying was much more exciting. Care to spill?
Perhaps we should stick to my questions to you. You have been most helpful.
Aha. Ah. Aha. Oh. Huh. Oh. Huh.
What do you need? What can I do for you?
I will not take...
What do you need? The argument with Irene at the gala, and then with his wife after.
Madame Hélène had uncovered their relationship. But even with this revelation, what still remains a mystery is Monsieur Christiansen's involvement with the theft.
You're just full of questions, aren't you? Own? You don't just own an animal detective, he's part of our family.
Pardon. And his name?
Enoch. And I ask you the question, what's he got to do with anything? And how do you know about him?
Purely curiosity, madame. Enoch. A splendid name for a most handsome dog.
And it was your husband that mentioned him at the gala.
It means faithful in Norwegian. It was Johan's idea.
You have been most helpful.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
Aha. Huh. Oh.
The pigment of this paint is brighter than it should be.
Meaning?
We have found our second forgery.
Oh.
Poirot, the door. What are you doing in?
Monsieur Christiansen, welcome home.
This doesn't look good, does it?
We have much to discuss.
So Mr. Christiansen had an opportunity and a motive, but he continues to deny killing her.
And still 2 forgeries remain.
I knew it!
Pardon, monsieur?
I knew that's why she stayed so friendly with her. Irene always said she was besotted, that she could get her to do whatever she wanted.
Perhaps you should elaborate on the identity of her?
The curator. Evelyn, what's her name? She could spot a forgery at 20 yards. What better person to show you the ropes so you can make your own?
If the board of trustees at the museum got wind of this, Miss Warbeck's career would be finished.
And in her own words, if anyone was to jeopardize her career,
she wouldn't be held responsible for her actions.
it seems Monsieur Christiansen may not be the only person tied to Mademoiselle Court Smyth who has a secret to hide. Madame Hélène has confirmed the surprise appearance of her husband during the intermission of her show. And as expected, she... Monsieur Hastings, there is something troubling you?
If I may speak freely.
You do not have to ask my permission.
This is all very overwhelming. We seem to be taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back.
I can understand your confusion, but you cannot allow it to consume you and your emotions to take charge.
Easier said than done. I just...
Oui, monsieur?
Must you be so hard on her?
I presume you refer to Mademoiselle Farquhar.
You talk about emotions not taking charge.
She is a suspect in a murder investigation, not a guest at afternoon tea. If Mademoiselle Farquhar is more important than discovering the truth and finding justice,
I would have thought you would know better of me by now. I'm sorry, but I don't agree with how you spoke to her.
when it is your investigation, you will have the authority to conduct your questioning how you see fit. Until then, I will continue in a manner that has and continues to bring criminals to justice.
And I'll just keep my opinions to myself.
Let us focus on the case. What do we know about Mademoiselle Warbeck's relationship with the deceased?
Mr. Christiansen suggested she had romantic feelings towards Irene, but she was just another of her pawns.
She cleaned the master key to hide Mademoiselle Court Smyth's actions, but perhaps she then became worried about her own involvement.
You think she could have killed her to stop the truth coming out to the trustees?
Which would in turn ruin her career. It is certainly a possibility. Your Grace.
Detective Poirot, good morning. Can I assume there is still a murderer loose on the streets?
London is a very large city. I would fathom a guess that there is more than one, as I have not had the chance to arrest him yet.
Your confidence astounds me. Look, you had better make it quick. I'm meeting the young Russian girl here. She had some questions about the museum building at the gala. Questions I'm sure only I can answer. God teaches us to forgive and love thy neighbor. Sometimes that can be more challenging than expected.
Has she offended you personally?
Using the museum for her sordid meetings with those uncouth men, I'd say so.
She doesn't strike me as someone that would be caught up in that sort of thing.
And what sort of thing am I referring to?
Well,
Exactly. If you don't know, it would be wise to remain quiet until you're spoken to. I walked in on them in the restoration room a couple of weeks ago. I had come straight from my regular Sunday service, as I had some business to tend to. I opened the door and saw them all sitting there, scheming and planning.
You are not aware of what they were meeting about?
Do you need to wash your ears out? I just told you what they were up to. And I could see she had the financial books out. Why would she need them? I'm not even privy to those. And when she saw me, they stopped talking immediately. Surely that is a sign of their guilt,
Merci, Your Grace. Mademoiselle Warbeck, if you have a moment.
I'm actually rather busy. Is there any chance you could come back later?
I would have thought recovering your painting and identifying a murderer would be at the top of your priority list.
I'm sorry. It's just been so hectic here. I can spare 5 minutes. Honorable? That's a good one.
I get the sense you two spend your time butting faces.
Butting heads.
Oui, butting heads.
It would be easier to say what we do agree on. I don't know what he has against me. I didn't like one of his suggestions for an exhibition, and since then he's made it pretty clear he wants me gone. Usually after an exhibition, the artist's work would be returned to them.
But on this occasion, that is not an option.
I still have every intention of going ahead with the exhibit that includes her work, even if the trustees are against it. I'm still the curator of this museum. I'm hanging her work now, and that's that.
I recall Mademoiselle Court Smyth referred to the exhibit as hers. The level of arrogance and hypocrisy is now even more evident.
Is it necessary?
You do not wish to impede my investigation?
No, but I don't really understand what they have to do with the case.
It is important that...
That is quite all right, mademoiselle. It was not my intention to make you feel uncomfortable. You have been most helpful.
Aha. Huh. Ah. Aha.
Come now. Think on what has already been learned. I must act on thought and fact, not... Order and method. That is the way to solve the problem.
Huh. Ah. Oh.
Go right ahead, Detective.
You have been most helpful.
Go on, then. You make it sound as though it is I that has a problem with her.
Forgive me, have I misinterpreted?
If you cannot even understand what I have to say, how will you ever understand what Jesus and his Father in heaven require of you?
That is perhaps a matter best discussed at a later time. What I wish to know now is about you and Mademoiselle Warbeck.
There is no need to lose one's temper, Detective. The Lord tells us...
Your Grace, please.
A lesson for another time. Let's just say that I certainly wouldn't have given that common thief an exhibition, especially now.
Merci, Your Grace.
Go right ahead, Detective.
You have been most helpful.
Go right ahead, Detective.
You have been most helpful.
go on, then?
Merci.
Huh. Aha. Huh. Oh. Huh.
Go right ahead, Detective.
You have been most helpful.
Ah. Ah. Aha. Oh.
Go right ahead, Detective.
You have been most helpful.
Is there something I am not seeing? This will not get me any closer to my goal. I should consider this further. Voila. What a revelation!
Go right ahead, Detective.
You have been most helpful. Bishop Mountjoy was quite adamant Mademoiselle Warbeck's meeting was something untoward.
Although I believe anything she does, he will likely look upon negatively. To have a young woman undermine him in front of the other trustees would have been the ultimate insult. He allows his personal feelings to accentuate his cynical side, instead of allowing facts and evidence to show the truth, as one should. Mademoiselle Warbeck was doing nothing detrimental to the museum. In fact, quite the opposite with her attempt to modernize it, likely against the old-fashioned trustees' opinions.
Go right ahead, Detective. I wonder who you've been talking to. What did he tell you? That I've been up to no good?
Not in so many words.
I was meeting with artists for a new exhibition. He has no idea what he is talking about when it comes to art. Or really anything for that fact. He can't see the future. The new wave that will change the art world forever.
As well as the uncouth gentleman you met, he also mentioned the financial books.
Uncouth? Anyone not wearing full priest robes is uncouth to him. I wouldn't show Horace the finances because it has nothing to do with him. And he's simply looking for any excuse to have me fired. Nothing more. Well, considering he didn't want her work anywhere near the museum, I wouldn't have said they had one at all. Then the next thing I heard was that he had commissioned her to do some pieces for his church. I didn't know anything about it until Irene told me.
Do you know what he had commissioned her to paint?
No idea, I'm afraid. She was sworn to secrecy.
You have been most helpful.
Go on, then. You'll have to be more specific than that, Detective.
The paintings produced by Mademoiselle Court Smyth's brush.
Oh, yes. Well, I thought it was necessary if she was to feature in the museum.
You couldn't just use her other pieces as reference?
I suppose I could have, but I don't actually see why it is any concern of yours. It is not as though I kept it anyway. I wasn't happy with it clogging up my bin, let alone my museum.
Merci, Your Grace.
Mm-hmm. Ah. Hmm. Oh. Huh. Huh. Hmm. Ah. Hmm. Oh. Oh. Huh. Aha. Aha. Ah. Huh. Ah. Huh. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh. 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 Aha. Hmm. Huh. Hmm. Aha. Hmm. Hmm. Aha. Oh.
Come, my little grey cells. Something just does not feel right. I must take a different approach if I am to uncover the truth. I cannot see the logic in this. Hot on the culprit's heels. Where is the sense in that? The evidence suggests something else. Something just does not feel right. Some would say a lucky guess. I would say a moment of genius. Things are beginning to become clearer.
It appears that the good bishop has been replacing the church's original artworks with fakes painted by Mademoiselle Court Smyth. He commissioned her to make these forgeries so that no one would notice when the originals disappeared.
Disappearing where, though? You don't think he's selling them, do you?
Why else? Mademoiselle Babagnin appears to have been right about the bishop's connection to the black market. Now, Hastings, we must ask ourselves, where might Bishop Mountjoy be hiding the original paintings from the church before he sells them on? We must gain access to the space behind the confessional.
Huh.
why don't you have a look first?
Do not tell me you are afraid of the dark.
Not the dark, just pitch-black, eerie passages in old churches. Poirot, where are we?
If I am not mistaken, this is part of the secret tunnels that were built hundreds of years ago to sneak those that did not agree with the powers of the country out.
And why exactly are we in here?
The why must never be obvious. That is the whole point.
Right.
Oh. Huh. Huh.
We have our third forgery. There is evidence of a much more modern painting on the back of the canvas.
Thank goodness. Don't know how I would explain finding the original in such a state.
Bishop Mountjoy must have discovered the painting that he received from Mademoiselle Court Smyth was one of her forgeries.
And lashed out. Now it makes sense. He's been using this room to store his own private art collection. I can picture him sitting here smug as anything, surrounded by stolen paintings.
What I find most unfortunate
is that not only does he deprive the world of beauty and joy from seeing these works, but he also keeps them in such dark and dank conditions, the old fool. He's even having to light his candle clock to keep from drifting off down here. Such a waste, don't you think, Poirot?
One's opinions are now worth listening to.
I was only voicing my thoughts.
You have thoughts beside those of Mademoiselle Farquhar?
Really, Poirot? You still think so little of me?
When one exclaims such regard for a suspect in a murder investigation, it is hard not to think any other way and comment so.
You may not be so accustomed to the idea of showing, or at least having, some form of empathy for our fellow man.
There is a difference between empathy and lust.
And there is a difference between commenting and being rude and obnoxious.
I was not expecting Monsieur Hastings to be so sensitive on the matter. Perhaps this conversation is best saved for when we are not trapped together.
What was that? Oh, just the bishop's candle clock. I don't know about you, but I've had enough of this place. Let's get out of here. What are you doing, Poirot?
S'il vous plaît, un moment.
The bishop's candle clock has forced me to question everything of the murder scene that I previously thought I knew.
We must return to Mademoiselle Court Smyth's apartment.
Perhaps that is a job best left for you, by yourself.
Ah. Oh. Mm-hmm. Ah. Huh. Huh. Hmm. Huh.
Et maintenant?
Oh.
I believed myself to be the greatest detective in the most prestigious police force in the world. But I have been duped and swindled, falling directly into the trap laid by the killer. And now I stand here alone, contemplating what is to come next. Monsieur Hastings was quick to make his excuses to retire to his abode and not return to the scene of the crime by my side. I hope there is not something further that troubles him. One does not need added strains at a time when steps must be retraced and a new timeline considered. Sacré! I have spent my time staring into the sun when deceit and deception has taken place in the shadows. A murderer remains free, but the truth of the fire eludes Detective Hercule Poirot no more, and soon neither will their identity. I cannot believe I allowed my